Welcome to Anti-Moonboy News, week ending 12/9/24. Let's get right to it. So to start the show off, and I'm going to be doing this for each episode going forward, we're going to read off donations that I received on xmrchat.com/Xenu. I received first a private donation, so thank you for that. And secondly, I received a tip from Immortal, who writes, "Sorry, Anti-Moonboy, Monero be mooning, and I'm not going to be upset. Thanks a lot for the awesome work. Also, if I may advertise, I'm selling silver for Monero in Europe at xmrbazaar.com/user/immortal. Well, thank you for that donation. Obviously, we did see Monero pump this week, and it actually just dumped again. I think on the news about quantum computing, which we're going to talk about later. Now, as has been mentioned before, I'm not going to get upset if the price of Monero increases. All else equal, that is a good thing for the project. The project gets more secure, the hash rate goes up, more eyes on the code, and you can buy more stuff. I'm not going to get angry about that. To be anti-Moonboy is to be against sacrificing your idealism for number go up, which is what we've seen with many of the top projects today, most notably Bitcoin. These guys are willing to bend the knee to secure their bags, and that's just not going to fly with someone like me. And I am looking at the silver page. I respect the hustle, by the way, to advertise. I didn't even consider people could do that, so hats off to you. And he's selling, looks like collector silver coins, including Nazi silver coins, which actually does look kind of cool. I guess that's the type of listeners I'm getting on this channel. But no, thank you for this donation. I really appreciate it. And let's now get to the episode. So I just talked about the price appreciation that was short-lived, but when it did happen, guess what we saw? A new all-time high in the hash rate. Great to see. And it's notable, too, because we're nowhere near the all-time high for Monero. So the fact that the hash rate all-time high has been reached will just show you how much more the mining network has grown over the past couple of years, even during the bear market. Now, the big story this week in Monero has been some drama that unfolded with the Monero CCS and this certain fellow by the name of Kewbit. So basically, Kewbit was working on this Haveno app, and in this, and in doing so, he created a CCS proposal. Now, I have done CCS work in the past as well, and what happens with a lot of these is you submit your work, and you have different milestones that you reach to get a portion of the payout. And this is done to prevent people from being scammed, which is essentially what happened here. So essentially, Kewbit reached this first milestone, and he said, "Hey, I reached a milestone. I need that 75 Monero that I'm owed." But the thing is, he didn't post the full source code for the project, which is sort of a requirement here. This is an open source project, so we need that source code. So anyways, when he was questioned about this, he became very defensive to the point where it was like very odd. And again, I'm not going to read through all of these logs because we'd be here for hours. But basically, he became like very confrontational, and there was a lot of back and forth. And I give a shout out to Synthetic Bird and Monero Bull, Rotten Wheel as well. They were really pushing back on this guy. Of Earn XMR, I think, was another one. These guys are doing the right thing by calling out this guy and saying, "Hey, why aren't you posting source code," right? So there's more back and forth going on. And eventually he did receive the first milestone because technically he had met it. I guess it was kind of a mess what he submitted. He did not, I don't think he might have released a source code. I forget what it was, but it wasn't the entire project is essentially what it was. He didn't respect the licensing that he should have been respecting. It was just not good work, but technically he had reached that first milestone. Whatever. They gave him the 75 Monero. Then afterwards, they asked him, "Okay, now will you post the source code for the project? We reached this milestone." And then Kewbit didn't give him the source code, and instead he used the 75 Monero that he received as leverage to not receive the source code, and he demanded a full payment before doing so. Obviously, this was met with a total reaction from the Monero community saying, "What the hell is this guy doing?" So anyways, the CCS has been closed. Looks like the Monero project did end up losing 75 Monero, but that's actually relatively cheap for a scammer. It just goes to show you that you have to really make sure these CCS proposals are as authentic as they can be. And this is not the first time Monero has been scammed. These things happen. And if you're annoyed by this, the best way to stop it is to get involved yourself. I do know that I think it's every other Saturday or Sunday, there's a community meeting. I should probably have looked this up before talking about it, but go on the internet on Monero Observer. I think they have like a list of when the meetings are, and start participating, because there's not many people doing this, and we can't really put the blame on these people for not catching this earlier, because they did eventually catch it anyway. So again, shout out to the people who are contributing to this, and I encourage you, if you are interested, to get involved, because the project will only improve if we have more motivated people helping out. All right, so the other thing, this week we released our 4th animated video for full chain membership proofs. By we, I mean me and Vosto Amicio. It got a ton of engagement on social media. I'm very proud of this video. I think it came out really well. So check that out, especially if you don't understand how full chain membership proofs work, because I think we do a really good job of like visualizing, how ring signatures are going to be improved with the animation in this video. So now let's pivot to some other news. This actually just broke yesterday, where there is now a new state-of-the-art quantum chip produced by Google called Willow. I'm not going to get into the weeds of the science here, because I don't really completely understand it. However, quantum computing is going to be an issue for everything, right? So we have to always be aware that this is an arms race, that privacy is an arms race, and that, to develop quantum computing is in itself an arms race amongst nation states. So this is like active production that's happening, and we need to keep an eye on it. And I mentioned last week that Luke Parker was stepping down from his more active role in Monero. And one thing that I didn't mention that I probably should have is that in his post, he proposed immediately starting a parallel research and development effort on a post-quantum protocol. And I really like that idea a lot, and it's even more relevant now. We should be researching how something like Monero can adapt to a situation like this. Now, in the past, there was a CCS proposal that did look at quantum computing and did develop some strategies for that. So Monero actually is already ahead of the game, but why not have more research, right? Now, this leads me to the hiring of David Sachs as the first Crypto Czar. This was an appointment by Trump that had happened this week. Now, this guy does have a pretty large stake in Solana, and I don't really know anything about this guy, and I don't really think it's going to make much of a difference. As I've already said before, the way everything is trending is more impediment on privacy and open source and self-custody. And KYC is going to get more and more omnipresent, right? None of that's going to change. Now, in other Bitcoin news, it was shown that the team behind the Wasabi wallet fork, Ginger Wallet, had a vulnerability in their CoinJoin protocol, and I guess this allowed malicious coordinators to de-anonymize CoinJoins. So if you are using this wallet, update, because you're using something that is, or that has a vulnerability. I don't really know if anyone's actually using this. I do have my finger on the pulse for the Bitcoin privacy crowd, and no one's shilling this. And why would they? Anything touching Wasabi is probably glowing at this point. But yeah, I figured I'd point that out, that there was some sort of vulnerability here. We have here a cryptojacking arrest of CP30. I guess this guy had mined almost $1 million worth of cryptocurrency without paying for server rentals. And so in the news article, I'm curious as to what he was doing. It says he employed specialized software to mine Ether, Litecoin, and Monero. Now, I'm assuming when this was going on, Ethereum was still using proof of work. And obviously with Monero, you can just use the CPUs or whatever. But with Litecoin, because that's ASIC mined, I'm not sure if he was actually even really making anything from that. But nonetheless, I guess he was mining that as well, and he made a lot of money. So I'm assuming most of his gains were with Ethereum and Monero. And yeah, he got caught. He's looking at 20 years. Was it worth it? Probably not. Now, I have here an article about a criminal messaging service called Matrix. Now, when I saw this article, I thought they were talking about the decentralized platform Matrix, which I use like pretty much every day. But I guess this was another Matrix. So I've never even heard of this. I guess it was used by, the bad guys out there. And it was an invite-only encrypted messaging service. But eventually it was compromised, and a total of 2.3 million messages in 33 languages were intercepted. And so now a bunch of people are being arrested. Still, the safest way of sending messages is good old PGP. So the best way to operate if you're using some sort of instant messaging platform is just to assume everything is being logged. I mean, this is what I do. If I ever have any sensitive information, I'm going to use PGP. And that's what I would recommend for everybody. And before I get to the final topic, I do want to give a shout out to Pubkey, which is a bar in New York. They are hosting a privacy meetup, and that's pretty cool. They will be doing some Bitcoin to Monero atomic swaps. They're going to be hyping up Rito Swap, Basic Swap, Cake Wallet. So yeah, that's really cool. Shout out to them. I wish I could go, but if you are in the New York metro area, you should hit that up because it should be a good time. Now, to finish off this episode, I'm going to do a little monologue talking about the question of whether 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. Now, this week, Doug had made this tweet. I think there was a lot of really good discussion here. So let's get into it. Doug says, a Bitcoin sold for 100K. But that doesn't mean all Bitcoins are each worth 100K. 1 Bitcoin does not equal 1 Bitcoin. Every Bitcoin has a unique transaction history attached to it. A Monero sold for $200. All Monero are worth $200. 1 XMR equals 1 XMR. All Moneros are the same. None of them have a transaction history. Now, I understand what Doug is going for here, but this is not the way that he should be doing it, specifically talking about the price. Because the thing is, when you're talking about the price of buying Bitcoin, what economy are you talking about there? Because let me tell you something. If somebody came up to me and he said, hey, I'm going to sell you Bitcoin 20% less than what it is now. So let's say Bitcoin's $100,000. He's going to give me a Bitcoin for $80,000. You know what my reaction is going to be? Hell yes. I'm going to back the truck up and I'm going to buy as much as I can off of that guy. And maybe I'm going to take advantage of a little arbitrage opportunity. I don't care about the transaction history of that Bitcoin. It could be taken from Bin Laden's toilet bowl, right? In the words of Conor McGregor, I don't give a fuck, okay? I'm going to slurp up those cheapies. And the thing is, when you are saying, well, Bitcoin sold for 100K, like, what are you talking about? You're probably talking about KYC. And I think this is a really bad way of going about this because Bitcoin that is going through a KYC exchange is no different, really, than a Monero going through that KYC exchange. I've talked ad nauseum about this in my series, Attack of the Poison Outputs. KYC exchanges are the biggest threat to cryptocurrency privacy. They get your IP address, your user agent. They log every time you're in and out of their service. They log how much cryptocurrency you're buying, when you're sending it, how much you're sending. It is data collection on people, and they are monitoring everything. They look at someone who uses Bitcoin privately in the same way as they look at someone just using Monero. Why are you using these tools? You should be like 95 to 99% of other people in cryptocurrency. You should just buy crypto and hold it and try to make money, right? That's why people should be using crypto, and that is what they're doing. Someone using Samurai Wallet is no different to them than someone using Monero. I mean, I know Samurai Wallet doesn't exist anymore, but you get my point, okay? What Doug should do is not appeal to the regulators here. And I know that wasn't his intention, but that is what he's doing here. He shouldn't do that. Instead, he should point out cases like Bitcoin Fog. Bitcoin Fog is a great case to point at because that was a guy who was just using Bitcoin, and now he's been roped into this huge investigation. He's serving all these years in prison. He owes the government hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's just because he used Bitcoin and that his coins had a history attached to it, and through faulty blockchain surveillance, he got roped into that. That is why 1 Bitcoin does not equal 1 Bitcoin. Obviously, if you're purchasing any cryptocurrency through non-KYC means, there's usually a premium on that, okay? Usually like a 5-10% premium on something. Like when local Monero existed, I would pay a little premium to get my Monero non-KYC because it's peer-to-peer. That usually is what happens in those markets. Now, does that mean one Monero equals one Monero? I would say yes, it does mean that. But Monero purchased on local Monero is going to be a little more expensive than if I were to buy through something like Kraken. Now, Max Tannehill is someone I would describe as an anti-Moonboy. He's clearly in this for the technology, and he's not trying to get sick gains or whatever. And I think he summarizes it pretty nicely here, where he says, Bitcoin has a street price of 100K where I live, and I could easily sell or buy greater than one Bitcoin for cash too. Why? Because anyone I would sell it to wouldn't be inferring transaction history from it on the spot. So what people, I think, in Monero are saying is, well, the common man, they're going to want to use, these KYC exchanges, and they're going to be blocked. But here's the problem. Monero is already blocked from these exchanges, right? So if you are getting Bitcoin from these KYC exchanges and you're then throwing into Whirlpool, yeah, that's going to throw up a red flag. Likewise, if you're using a Monero from a KYC exchange, that's going to give you a red flag. It's the same thing. Therefore, what these exchanges are doing is they're just removing Monero. Way easier for them to deal with. They don't want that smoke, right? They know they can't prove, where the transactions go or where they came from. So they're just not going to deal with it. And likewise, with people using Bitcoin privacy tools, they're going to say, we can't really prove where this Bitcoin came from, but they used a privacy tool and we're going to flag it. We've seen CoinSwap services freeze Monero payments saying, hey, who are you? Give us your KYC information. Is that because the person used Monero? Very possibly, right? And I would assume, again, that anybody who is using Monero is being looked at like they are a target, right? Why aren't you acting like those other people who are just buying crypto to make money? Are you a criminal, right? I guess really the best way to look at this, okay, is if there is future regulation against Monero, it is not against Monero. It is against the concept of digital cash. There's not going to be some law saying Monero is banned. The law is going to be very boring and very technical, and it's going to be against anonymization and anonymization techniques. That is what they're going to target. So Monero automatically lumped into that. Bitcoin mixing services lumped into that. They're going to just try to blanket ban any type of thing that avoids surveillance. That is what they want. They want transparency. They want surveillance. They want KYC only. They don't want self-custody. And they are going to get their way because they are supported by the Moonboys. Because the Moonboys are going to support this. Now, if you think KYC is bad now, how about 10 years in the future? Like, do you think it's going to get better or worse? How about we let ASIC mining dominate for another 10 years? Now, speaking of that, it's actually quite puzzling to me how many of these like OG Bitcoin cypherpunks are like kind of like blissful about this ASIC mining monopolization by Bitmain. Doesn't make any sense to me because that is another way they can target Bitcoin and censor things. And like, I know it's not happening now, but in the future, any sort of mining company, the feds are just going to go and say, hey, follow our rules or we're going to take you guys down, essentially. Or you guys are aiding criminals, right? And they're going to go along with it. And because so many people are just buying Bitcoin as an investment, they're going to support that because they want their investment to be protected. And that is what's happening with Bitcoin. Like Bitcoin, it's kind of like, let's say you go to a party and, you get to the party, everyone's sober and you're the designated driver. And then everyone gets fucked up around you. You want to get the hell out of that party once everyone's fucked up and everyone's loud and being obnoxious and you're just sitting there like, why am I here? This sucks. Or you find the other sober people there, which is kind of what's happening right now. Like the only, the niche Bitcoiners out there that are actually upholding that cypherpunk kind of ideology, they have banded together and they have produced these great tools, but they're becoming less and less over time because it is very obvious that the project is moving towards this digital store of value, and they're looking at this, this concept of digital cash as archaic. Why would we do that? We just want to hold our Bitcoin forever and ever, and we want the number to go up. Oh, you're telling me that somebody is using Bitcoin possibly for terrorism? Let's just not allow that. Why are people even using Bitcoin? We don't want that. We just want it as property, and the property value is going to go up because more people want to buy it. And now some other countries are buying it. Trump is buying it. Whatever. You get the idea. OFAC compliance, it's going to happen in the future. or things like that. And I think it's inevitable, especially when you have this type of monopolization through Bitmain. So yes, the future is very likely going to be 100% KYC and 100% control. Or at least that's going to be the intention, because there's always going to be a niche sector of digital cash advocates looking to fight back. For us, 1 Bitcoin should equal 1 Bitcoin, because we shouldn't care about a coin's history. And we should have that mindset. However, this does not take into account that the 99% of people who will dominate the chain will care about appeasing to regulators, and therefore will care about the coin's history. Because if that coin's history is bad, then it should be worth less than their pristine Bitcoin that is endorsed by regulators, and that is therefore the number go up friendly version of Bitcoin. And that's really the problem. So while the cypherpunk in me has to say that yes, 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, I don't care about a Bitcoin's history. The black pill is that the majority of Bitcoiners, they actually will care about that coin's history to protect their investment. And if these regulations don't exist, then their investment will go down because the government will then start to attack it. So that is the news. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I should have another episode of Attack of the Poison Outputs on Thursday. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.